Hey everyone, I have a tiny little review to do today of a new controller from PowerA, the Nano Enhanced Wireless Controller for Nintendo Switch. And full disclosure, PowerA sent this to me for free, but this is a controller I was looking into getting anyway. I was actually in contact with PowerA back in July, I think, about this controller, and there was definitely some sort of production delay because this wasn't released until the beginning of November, I believe, but it just showed up the other week in the mail, and I have to say, when this first showed up and I got my hands on it, I was super excited about it because even though it is tinier, I find it super comfortable. And real quick, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on everything happening with the channel. And with all that out of the way, let's get into it. Here it is in all its glory. I have to say, I absolutely love this colorway. There is another version of this, just a black and gray version with, gray underneath the sticks and on the triggers. And this one just looks so much better. Just a really cool look with the neon to kind of go with the neon Nintendo Switch aesthetic. And since this is probably not coming across on camera, I've got another Pro controller here to compare. And as you can see, it's quite a bit smaller. It's probably like 2/3 size, but like I said, when it first showed up and I got my hands on it, I'm like, man, this feels awesome. And there's something about it that feels almost more premium than PowerA's other, standard size Pro controllers. It's got a really nice weight to it, even though it's smaller. I think they just tossed some weights in there, but it feels like about the same weight as their, regular controllers, which I think is nice. I don't like when they feel, kind of hollow or empty. It just gives it this kind of cheap feeling. And this feels really solid. Even though you don't have the rumble motors in there, which definitely give it some extra weight, it's still got a good solid feel to it. And then it also has kind of this slightly textured matte finish, which also feels really nice in the hands. And then as far as features go, like I said, you're not going to have rumble and you don't have NFC functionality for Amiibo support, but it is rechargeable through USB-C, so that's great. I don't really like messing with batteries, so I like that PowerA has gone the rechargeable route with their controllers lately, so that's super cool. And then you do have motion support, so playing Splatoon or Breath of the Wild when you're shooting your bow, all that stuff works as normal, so that's great. I do use motion controls quite a bit. And then you also have the added mappable triggers, which are also on PowerA's other enhanced wireless controllers. And I don't use those a ton, but it is nice to know that there's just an option there if for whatever reason you wanted to map any of the face buttons to these extra triggers in the back. It's super simple. You've got your mapping macro button here. And then this little LED will light up. You select your button that you want mapped, and then you select which trigger you want it mapped to. So just a cool little added bonus for this controller. And I don't think I mentioned it yet, this controller will run $49.99, so you are saving $20 compared to the regular Pro controller. And the way PowerA has positioned this is as their controller on the go, something you could easily throw in your bag or travel with, and it's not going to take up as much space. And, I think that definitely makes sense. They have also included this nice little microfiber cinch sack, which makes it super easy to just toss in there, throw in your bag. Don't have to worry about it getting scuffed up or anything like that. So that's a cool little extra thrown in there. It's nice quality. And then they've also included the USB A to C charging cable, but it's 6 feet long, which is really nice. You could be charging this controller while playing and still stay a decent distance away from the TV, or leave it wired if you wanted to do that for whatever reason. So I think that's really cool. And then, like I was saying before, this does feel more premium somehow, even down to how the buttons feel. It just feels almost like a first party Nintendo product. The buttons are nice and large, even though the controller is reduced in size. I think they went with like the same button size of the standard Pro controller, even with the D-pad and the thumbsticks, even though the controller's reduced in size by quite a bit, the body. But all the buttons feel really, really great. Thumbsticks feel great. They're not too springy. The D-pad is ever so slightly softer than the other PowerA D-pads, the ones that kind of have that metallic finish. Those are super clicky, and I kind of like the resistance on those. This one's just a little bit softer, but I haven't had any problems with it. And then the triggers, they just feel perfect. And even the mappable triggers on the back, they feel great too. They kind of feel better than the other mappable triggers on their other controllers, just really nice and clicky. And then kind of going to the overall feel, when I first opened it up, I was really surprised at how comfortable it feels. Even for me, someone with big hands, I didn't feel like this was going to be too crampy or anything. I maybe hold it like slightly higher up than I would the standard Pro Controller. I don't put the grips like way down in my palms here, because then I would be kind of cramped in the way things are placed. But just holding it a little higher up feels really great. But even though PowerA is positioning this as like a travel controller, I do think this makes an awesome option for a younger child or someone with tiny hands that maybe feels like the regular Pro Controller is just a little too big. I know my wife doesn't love the feel of the standard Pro Controller. It's just like a little too chunky for her, so she'll probably be asking to use this quite a bit. So yeah, I think overall, with the really cool color design here, the premium feel, the little extra features, how good the buttons feel, overall, I think this is an awesome option. Good price point, and it's cool. I don't think there are a lot of other miniaturized Pro Controller options, so I think it was smart of PowerA to jump on this. So with all the positive stuff out of the way, overall, I think this is a great controller. I do have a couple little nitpicks after spending a few weeks with it now that I've maybe come down ever so slightly from my initial excitement. Nothing major, but a few little weird things I noticed. While I was playing, even though the plus and minus and the capture and home buttons feel really nice, some of these on the other third-party controllers are made out of rubber and they feel really squishy, and I just kind of hate that feeling. It just feels super cheap. These feel great, but the problem is I noticed when pressing these, it didn't always register when I was playing the Switch, even though it kind of feels like there's just a natural point that these click to. You kind of have to press it just a little harder than you think you would. So that's kind of frustrating. And it's a weird little thing that kind of takes away from this controller being like pretty much perfect for, what it's offering. I guess the good thing is you're not really using these buttons all that much. I guess depending on the game, although the plus and minus buttons do get relegated for, kind of your menu control or your, pause button. So if you are in a game that has you navigating the menu a lot, I guess something like Breath of the Wild, that might get frustrating after a while, because it did seem really hit or miss. If I wasn't thinking about it and I was just pressing it how I normally would, I'd be like, oh, that didn't register, and you kind of have to there's a little bit more give after it clicks, and you kind of have to press it a little harder. So weird little thing, but I thought I'd mention it because I definitely noticed it. And then the other thing is, when I first took this out and it felt so good, I'm like, oh, this is a great size. It doesn't really bother me that it's that much smaller. I do think it matters what kind of game you're choosing to play while using this. I first tried this out with Mario Kart, and with that game, you're really just kind of finger down on the accelerator. You're just kind of holding the gas the whole time and then using the left thumbstick and your triggers for drifting and your items. And playing that game felt great. I didn't really run into any issues. I didn't feel like this was too tiny. But then I did switch over to Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, and if you've played the game, I'm sure you're familiar that you're kind of mashing buttons quite a bit. You're switching between X and Y and A and B, and you're pressing those buttons a lot. And I just found that a game like that, where you're kind of constantly pressing the buttons and moving around the buttons a lot, it eventually got to feeling like, okay, I think I'd rather be playing this game with a full-size controller. But if you are relying on this as kind of a travel controller, you're probably not doing extra long gaming sessions, maybe just something in the hotel room or with a friend, or maybe, while you're on the plane, just an hour or two there. So I think in that use case, this is going to be great. And yeah, to not go on too much longer about just kind of a standard Pro Controller, but a tiny one, I think that's going to cover it. I think I said everything I wanted to say. So hopefully if you see this in the store and you're maybe considering grabbing one, or you're one of the people out there who's like, oh, I just wish they made a Pro controller that was slightly smaller, this is going to be the one to get. And yeah, I hope I helped answer any questions you might have. It's a great little option. It feels super high quality. You've got, you know, a decent amount of features. You've got the extra mappable buttons, and you're just missing out on Rumble and Amiibo functionality, but you're also saving 20 bucks. So I think those trade-offs are, you know, perfectly worth it. And yeah, I think that's gonna do it. So if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like on your way out, and also consider subscribing. And yeah, until the next video, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.